Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this annual conference, the annual safety conference for EASA for 2019. My name is Janet Northcote, and I'm the head of communications for EASA.
And welcome to Helsinki, welcome to Finland. I'm Mikko, Chief Advisor to Director General of Civil Aviation here at TRAFICOM. This event is co-hosted by EASA and Finnish Transport and Communications Agency. A few practical things before we get started. Wi-Fi information, you can find that from the screen and also behind your name tags. There is no password required for that. Please also keep your mobile phones available in silent mode, but available. You're not going to need that for a Slido when we get to the panel discussions. And one more thing, be active in social media. You can use hashtag annual safety conference, all in one word.
Our theme for this year's conference is Airline Operational Safety, a Vision for the Future. And we're going to be discussing that in panels and also with some keynote speakers over the next day and a half. The program you can find here on the back of your badges if you need to know how to plan your day or which bits you'd really like to prioritize. The final thing in our program this time will be a panel discussion which has high-level speakers and will really look at what's going to happen in 2020 and beyond. I'd like now to, without any delay, introduce our first speaker from the Finnish Ministry of Transport and Communication, Mikko Koskinen. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to be here today. As we all know, the level of aviation safety is at good level here in Europe, but also globally. We can be pleased with the current situation, but we should not take it for granted. In my opinion, there lies a risk that the good level of aviation safety will become a self-evident fact. Therefore, I want to emphasize that it is important that we work ambitiously to maintain the high level of aviation safety also in the future. This is particularly important now when new technologies are being developed and with increasing tempo. We should set ourselves completely new, ambitious safety goals. Instead of thinking about regulatory framework of aviation safety, not only the viewpoint of risk and performance-based approach, we should rather focus on creating so-called smart regulation. By this I mean regulation that takes into account the viewpoint of the markets. To put it in other words, smart regulation is technology-neutral regulation. The viewpoint of the markets is essential, especially in the discussion related to unmanned aircraft systems, which also go under the name drones, and their integration into the airspace. What is typical to these new actors in the field of aviation is that they are often new to aviation and used to or intend to use new technologies and air vehicle concepts, for which there is currently little or no regulation. We have come to realize that these new emerging innovative activities have an impact on current aviation and on the air navigation system as a whole. Therefore, it is important that they are governed appropriately so we can encourage and enable these new businesses while maintaining the high level of safety and security for all existing airspace users. This matter was discussed in the 40th Assembly of ICAO last month. In these discussions, also the viewpoint of the markets was present. The Minister of Transport and Communications highlighted in her speech that the aim should be to promote the operation of the markets and regulate only what is necessary to meet the safety objectives. In other words, we should make sure that the European or on a global level, we do not introduce regulation that limits the use of different future technologies. I could not agree more. Ladies and gentlemen, new technologies and digitalization has also downsides that we need to acknowledge. Therefore, in these times of digitalization, I believe it is utmost importance to introduce in the discussion of current level of aviation safety the perspective of cybersecurity. It is my impression that in the context of security, we are pushing digitalization to its limits. I believe that in order to manage the increasing development of digitalization in the field of aviation, there should be enough focus on cybersecurity, and especially for the so-called cyber by design. What I mean is that it is of great importance that we also take the necessary steps to ensure that the other side of this coin of digitalization, meaning cybersecurity, is well covered and included as an element which is taken into account right from the beginning when the new systems are being designed. In this area of digitalization, almost all the relevant factors may become victims of cyber threat. The importance of the new infrastructure and network solutions to aviation is growing, and therefore it is necessary to secure their use. In order to accomplish this target of securing air traffic and the system related to it, we need to carry out high-level security measures on a global level. This way, we can achieve a position in which different relevant actors have an adequate preparedness to notice and to react to different cyber threats. Here I have to emphasize that what an important role EASA has when it comes to promoting cybersecurity. Now, after the reform of the EASA basic regulation, EASA can take part in the cooperation concerning the area of aviation security, including cybersecurity. I think this is an excellent improvement, and I hope that in the future EASA can function as a focal point in gathering information from the member states about the best practices of cybersecurity solutions. EASA has also a great opportunity to promote this important expertise also on global level. The reform of EASA basic regulations also brought another significant improvement. Now the regulation entails the obligation to establish and maintain a state safety program for the management of civil aviation safety. In this field, EASA can also serve as a focal point in sharing the experiences of the member states. This way, we can learn from each other and develop even better level of aviation safety. But also, in this matter, we need to remember what is sufficient today may not be enough tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, an important element in the big picture of improving aviation safety and security is the so-called CES initiative. The European Commission launched the Single European Sky initiative in 1999 with the goal of improving the performance of the European air traffic management. Now, 20 years later, the European sky is still fragmented into numerous sectors following the national borders of the member states. This means that every time a plane enters the airspace of a member state, it is serviced by a different air navigation service provider. At the same time, the amount of air traffic is increasing. As the ATM capacity is not meeting the demand, it leads to passengers' inconvenience and very negative environmental aspects, causing also higher costs. Though it must be stated that the single European sky has achieved a lot, but more can be gained. The recent fast growth of air traffic has put more pressure to achieve the goals, especially to fix the lack of capacity and to reduce the environmental impact of aviation. I would again like to emphasize that the aviation safety and security issues cannot be compromised when implementing new innovations, technologies, or services. This is why the CES framework includes an integrated approach towards safety. Here I would also like to thank EASA for the important work it has done promoting safety within the CES framework. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to take this opportunity to emphasize the meaning of environmental aspect, which should always be included when we talk about the future of aviation. I have noticed that seldom there are meetings where the climate issues are not on the table in some respect. Quite rightfully so. As a fast-growing industry, international aviation faces many challenges in keeping up with their other sectors. We must fully utilize all aspects of the basket of measures in order to achieve the carbon neutral growth in 2020. A huge step forward came also through the finalization of the historic CORSIA agreement. Since then, there has been tremendous progress in setting up all necessary elements for the global system to fully start in 2021. Still, I'm sure we all know that we have to be even more ambitious. It is essential that we start setting our footsteps towards carbon neutral aviation. My personal hope is that we can show unity and ambition also in this matter. Nothing less is expected from us. As vital as CORSIA is for our climate efforts, we also need to increase our efforts towards cutting emissions within the aviation sector itself. I am excited about many promising projects of new technology. Our obligation as policymakers is to enable sustainable innovations through funding and persistent, trustworthy policies. Hybrid aircrafts and electrification will be the future, but capitalizing on what will take time which our climate does not have. Therefore, I urge all of you to think what could be done right now. When we think of future development of aviation safety and security, we should always include the viewpoint of environment into the discussion so that the perspective will be included also from the very beginning of creating new technologies. I am pleased to see that so many experts of different fields of aviation have gathered here today to take part in the discussions of different important topics related to aviation safety. I hope that this forum can provide you a place to network with other professionals and to discuss different innovative ways to promote the level of aviation safety in the future. Thank you.
Thank you to the State Secretary Koskinen for inspiring opening words for our event. Next, I would like to invite to the stage two very well-known gentlemen in European aviation who definitely don't need so much introduction at this stage. So please, welcome to the stage EASA Executive Director, Mr. Patrick Key, and Director General of Civil Aviation here in Finland, and Chairman of EASA Management Board, Pekka Henttu.
Start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Pekka Henttu, sorry. Thank you very much for hosting us here. We are very grateful to be hosted by the Finnish presidency of the EU. It's a great honor for us to be in Helsinki. As you know, we have every year one theme on which we want to have a discussion with the industry, with the stakeholders. And this year we have chosen airline operations, as being the main theme for this safety conference. And I think that, I don't know when was the last safety conference on AirOps, do you know, Edouard? So 10 years ago, no? Something like this. It's a long overdue. But dealing with the core of aviation operations, dealing with the core of safety, that we organize this type of discussion. So it's a unique opportunity for all of us, all of you, to meet, discuss with each other, learn about best practices, learn about what is happening in the different fields, in new technologies, and how we can increase the level of safety. I think the State Secretary mentioned it earlier. We have a very good level of safety for aviation today. And when you listen to CEOs, all CEOs, but also all staff representatives in our industry, they always claim that safety is their first priority. Now, is it just a slogan, or is it something which is really seen in practice? Let's have a discussion over the next 1.5 days on whether this is a reality or whether we can do more. Because when you look at it, effectively, the safety record of commercial aviation is quite good. But let's face the fact that for the last 5 to 10 years, the level of safety has been stagnating. It's very good. Aviation is certainly the safest transport mode that we have offered to us, but we have difficulties to improve our level of safety. Is it sufficient? Should we be happy, content about what the levels that we have reached? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because with this high level of safety, we have created a level of expectations from the traveling public, from also the political world, which would put an acceptable price on a lower safety level. And we see what's happening with the Boeing story as the price that the public is making pay for the stakeholders who are not, or for domains which are not seen to be safe. So we can still improve the level of safety, and that's really something that I think we should discuss today and tomorrow. We have new technologies which would enable us to improve the level of safety. You will have a panel this afternoon on digitalization. And technologies with new types of stakeholders, the drones, which were mentioned by the State Secretary, but also new types of entrants, UTM service providers, and so on and so forth. This can be seen as an opportunity for our business to increase our level of safety. Because at the end of the day, we always claim that we are safe. We always claim that we are working just for safety. But I fear that we are becoming a bit complacent with safety. And this is the biggest danger for us all. I've met with a number of high-level executives or politicians who told me that since there was already a very high level of safety in their country, in their company, in their organization, there was no reason to continue to invest heavily on safety. And I think that's the biggest risk that we are facing in our industry, complacency for safety. The jet age brought us speed, efficiency, and safety. When you think about it, the number of people in the air at a single moment is close to 1 million people across the world. And while we, the aviation world, have a minor impact, 2% on climate change, on CO2 emissions, we are seen still as a great contributor to pollution. And this is something which is more and more, and the State Secretary mentioned it, climate change, environment is seen more and more as a constraint to our industry. So we consider that indeed the technological revolution is something which can bring sustainability, and sustainability means enhanced safety levels, but also enhanced environmental impact. So what do we want to achieve today and tomorrow? Well, as I mentioned earlier, what we want is to have an open dialogue, discussion, interesting panels with interesting discussions with the floor, and that will be for the benefit of all of us. What we would like to get as well from the conference is, as the result of those discussions, in the last session, the conclusions of the 2 days, we draw, Pekka and I, the conclusions from the different topics, and we will take it in EASA as a kind of a roadmap for action. We did that a number of times following those aviation safety conferences, and it represents a bit of our strategic agenda for the topic in which we are discussing, and that we will take for an action roadmap on which we are committed to deliver, and we are committed to get back to you, our stakeholders. We would expect as well a better vision about what the future is going to be through new technologies, through new types of aircraft that may be flying in the air, and so on and so forth. So this conference will only be a success if you participate to the discussions, through the sessions, through a dialogue between the panel and the floor, but also when we will have the opportunity to discuss at breaks, at get-together events, and so on and so forth. So let's work together, and let's make this conference a huge success. Thank you very much.
Dear Mr. Koskinen, dear Mr. Manner, dear Patrick, and ladies and gentlemen, we are here to focus key safety challenges and opportunities in commercial air transport. We all are working for the European aviation, for the confidence of the traveling public. The typical elements of confidence are safety, security, environmental sustainability, punctuality, reliability, economy, and so on. If we fail with these elements, it will be reflected in the consumer's behavior. We have good understanding where we are with safety today. We have also learned that what is good today is probably not enough tomorrow. Today, and especially in the becoming years, we will have a lot of new technology available. We also see the value of digitalization for our sector. New technology and digitalization are probably not medicine for every disease, and they will also generate new problems and threats to be managed. Whatever decisions and actions are taken for the future of commercial air transport, either in operator's side or regulator's side, we should prioritize also security and environmental sustainability in addition to safety. As we know, EASA is working with all these three elements. I hope that in the future all these three elements are inbuilt in the system. When implementing new methods, processes, technology and structures, we should set higher safety, security and environmental goals instead of accepting the existing ones. We have to be ambitious. We will have 5 panels, altogether 28 aviation personalities, experienced personalities here on the podium, challenging each others and painting the future vision or visions. I hope that also you, audience, will challenge our panelists. Hopefully, at least one of the panelists will touch the theme. Actually, I'm referring what Patrick did mention. Yes, I really hope that at least one panelist will touch the theme, how to balance profit and those above mentioned 3 elements in the real life. Patrick, it has been once again great pleasure to work with you and your team to build up this conference. Thank you for all of you for joining us here in Helsinki. I hope that at the end of the conference we have a wider vision to the future. Thank you. So, thanks.
So, thank you to Patrick and to Pekka for putting our entire conference in a strategic perspective and really making clear what the role of everybody in this room is in terms of actually moving toward that goal. It's my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker. From the world of banking to the universe of aviation, we have Topi, the CEO of Finnair. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And good day to you all. Welcome to Helsinki and Finland, also on my behalf. I hope that you flew in with Finnair. And if you did so, I hope that we were able to serve you to your satisfaction. So as Janet was alluding to, I have been in this role, in this capacity at Finnair since the start of the year. So I'm a newbie in the industry after spending like 20 years in financial industry before this. So I think that, you know, one of the little ironies of life must be that I'm here talking about safety to you as a very sort of seasoned group of aviation professionalists and knowing a lot about safety. But ours is a fantastic industry in so many ways. And if there's one thing that I have learned about aviation during these months, is that everybody has an opinion. No matter where I go to, with whomever I talk, they have an opinion about connectivity, scheduling, service on board, quality of food, all of those things. But there's one thing in common for basically every interaction that I have around aviation, and that is that safety in some shape or form is always present in the discussion. And that is the way it should be. This is a very safety-driven industry with trust at its core. And safety and trust are big words, as we know. They will need to be earned every day, on every flight. And as an airline, we are only as good as our latest flight. So looking at the statistics, you have been seeing this picture previously. when we come back to year 72, aviation had almost 2,400 fatalities. And since that, gradually, slowly but surely, aviation has become a very safe way of transport. It is a very safe way of transport today. And there, of course, has been a number of things that have been contributing to this. Technological development, for sure, has played an important role. I think that this industry's understanding of the human factor and the ability to mitigate the human factor certainly is an important contributor. Another one is this industry's understanding of organizational factors driving systemic safety. And then certainly the sort of cross-industry efforts to put safety management systems in place has been playing an important role in the trend. So when we take a closer look at the safety development by means of fatalities, I think that this picture for the past decade shows that, of course, the number of passengers, the number of flights, the volumes in aviation has been growing tremendously. And at the same time, the fatality ratio has been decreasing, although there is quite a bit of variation between the years. 2017 was the safest year in history of aviation. But 2018 already is a fresh reminder for all of us that the low levels of fatalities in 2017 are not a given. Back in 2018, we had the first MAX 8 crash, the Lion Air crash in Indonesia. There was another one, Cubana de Aviación in Cuba. There was one in Russia, Saratov Airlines, the fourth one in Iran, leading to 530 fatalities during that year. And we have a growth industry, a fast-growing industry. So when this growth continues, this relative ratio is not enough. We need to break through to new levels of safety. And the last mile is always the most difficult one to put in place. So we need to do more in terms of safety. And that's the bottom line. This is a growth industry. So if this relative fatality ratio persists, the growth will lead to the kind of loss of life that is unacceptable. So instead of being focused on the relative, we need to be focused on the absolute. And the absolute will need to be very, very small, preferably zero. And that requires quite determined steps. And it won't be easy because there are multiple pressures, conflicting forces impacting industry. Financial pressures, competitive pressures are certainly one of them. I think that when we read how Boeing people themselves reflect on the root causes of the MAX 8 situation, I think that it comes through in those reflections that financial pressures, competitive pressures have played a role. So this is very real, something that can be seen already today. Congested airspace, operational forces that are impacting our daily operations are certainly something that we are feeling that are pressurizing the the system. Automation and artificial intelligence, for sure, are great enablers for new levels of safety in taking that last mile. But at the same time, they introduce new types of risks. For example, we need to make sure that there's duplication of data sources to prevent faulty data impacting operations. If there are irregularities, we need to make sure that there are override possibilities by human beings. And it is said that everything that can be automated actually will be automated. And automation as such requires simplification of processes. So when we simplify processes for automation, we will need to make sure that we are not cutting corners so that we would be compromising safety. Increased complexity actually comes out from the sheer volume, the sheer size of the aviation system. When we grow, there will be more airlines, there will be more aircraft, there will be more flights, there will be more people, more stakeholders, more IT systems. And this in itself will be a source of complexity. The sheer size will be a source of complexity in terms of the size of the aviation system. And then, as Patrick, Pekka, and Mikko all were alluding to, climate questions are big ones, big driving forces for aviation going forward. And when we consider the challenge of sustainable aviation, when we consider the challenge of reducing the carbon footprint of flying, I think that it's fair to say that technology will be biggest part of the answer in terms of new engine technologies, be that hybrid technologies or be that electrified flying, lighter airframes, or new types of sustainable aviation fuels produced with new technologies. So when we come about solving the climate question and the carbon footprint question of flying, I think that we need to be observant that we are not compromising safety. Climate change, of course, at the very end of the day, is about safety of the human race, the planet. But when we solve that solution, reducing the carbon footprint, I think that we need to make sure that we take care of the safety of the individual, namely the passenger. On the back of the growth that we will be seeing in aviation, there will be a lot of new people, new employees onboarding to the industry, new professionals, be that pilots, mechanics, or cabin crew members. So when we recruit these people, when we onboard them, I think that it is of paramount importance that we will be keeping the high standards in terms of competence, capability, and training that we have today, so that we are not lowering the bar. And then digitalization brings a lot of good, a lot of opportunity, but also in the form of cybersecurity, new types of risks related to safety and security. So these pressures, these driving forces form a landscape, a context for us to manage safety going forward, break through the new levels of safety, focusing on low absolute. I think that there will be win-wins in this picture. Single European sky is definitely a great example of a win-win-win here. It will be helping us in terms of congested airspace. It will be definitely helping us in terms of climate questions by reduced CO2 emissions. It will be helping us to promote, hopefully, automation and digitalization, and also take financial pressures out of the system. So it's a fantastic initiative, and I think that deserves all of our support going forward. But there will be also trade-offs that will need to be taken between these driving forces. And managing safety in this landscape requires quite a bit of leadership. And one of the definitions of leadership is that leadership is about solving paradoxes. You need to sell more while you are reducing cost. You need to boost the profit while you are investing in safety and risk management. So solving these paradoxes, making the right trade-offs is going to be important in terms of safety leadership. And at the same time, the saying goes that accidents do not happen. They are caused. So with that, I think that the bottom line is that the trade-off that we are making with safety is that we don't make any trade-offs. So safety is very much about people. It starts with people and it ends with people. I think that for the aviation community at large, safety is a common cause. It is something that should be bringing us together. And when we talk about breaking through the new levels of safety from the current stabilized situation, as Patrick was mentioning, I think that what will be needed is a lot of collaboration. Especially when we talk about new methods of safety management like predictive risk management. One of my observations coming into this industry is that this industry actually is relatively good in terms of sharing risk and safety related data. I think that on some other areas, like in commercial parts of the airline business, in the operations parts of the airline business, in air traffic control with open APIs, data sharing, we have quite a lot to be done. And we have only started. But when it comes to risk and safety data sharing, we are well on our way. But there's a lot of opportunity on that one also going forward. And I think that we need to do more. If you just think that how we are using predictive, sophisticated modeling in the commercial parts of the organization in airlines, or how we are using predictive modeling, for example, in the form of predictive maintenance, I think that same analogy applies to predictive risk management. But for that purpose, we need a lot of data, and more data than we have today. And my view would be that very much in the same way that safety is a common cause for aviation society at large, safety and risk-related data is a common good for aviation community, meaning that safety and risk-related data should be shared and exchanged freely and for free, or with the kind of price that is relatively low and only covers the cost. And that in itself will boost data sharing, create the data platform needed for predictive risk management going forward. And this is, of course, something where EASA can play a big role going forward. But it all boils down to collaboration. So from Finnair perspective, we are very willing to participate in this type of collaboration going forward, and we look forward to seeing more collaboration in these things in the aviation community between various airlines and various players going forward. So the collaboration is an important part of the kind of safety culture that we want to foster. It is part of the right attitude to safety. And the other one is the relentless commitment to safety, always putting safety first in our management, to strike the fine line where we should be confident about safety, but not complacent, as was mentioned here. And then the healthy reporting culture certainly is a big thing in this. In Finnair, no employee should have any doubts in reporting safety concerns or raising safety concerns or reporting incorrect behavior or activity related to safety procedures. And I hope that that same applies to all stakeholders in the aviation community. We are all humans, and humans make mistakes. But getting transparency to those errors is the start of the learning loop. And therefore, the reporting culture actually plays a very, very important role. It is the intentional violation of safety instructions and intentional activity or behavior that endangers safety, that cannot be tolerated and must not be tolerated. So in terms of safety, healthy reporting culture, we get to understand the patterns of behavior and activity that might have systemic consequences or individual consequences. We get to see the weak signals and observe the weak signals before they develop into something serious, more serious, potentially even fatal. And therefore, that is the sort of start of the learning loop that needs to function well in order for us to improve the levels of safety from today. So, all in all, sort of nurturing this type of culture with the right attitude, relentless commitment to safety, healthy reporting culture, this is a common cause for the aviation community, but no single party can do this alone. Finnair cannot do this alone. No airline can do this alone. So we need a lot of collaboration. So safety is very much about collaboration going forward, especially in the future when we need to break through to new levels of safety by means of being more data-driven, by means of being automated, and fostering that consistent culture across the aviation system. Thank you.